At this time, I am super excited to introduce our keynote this morning. Cassandra Sotos is an entrepreneur, co-owner, and CEO of AmpRx, as well as an internationally recognized violinist and recording artist. I hope everyone had the opportunity to enjoy her performance on Sunday night at the welcome reception. I sure did. Her journey as a musician started in Western Pennsylvania at the age of 4 when she first picked up her violin. By age 13, she was performing in honky-tonks and dive bars. After attending Penn State and studying industrial engineering, of course, and a brief detour in consulting, she realized she needed to re-devote her life to music, and she moved to Nashville, Tennessee. Also possessing an unyielding passion for entrepreneurship, Sotos has returned to the world of engineering and business and is now the co-owner and CEO of AmpRx, which is a music products company that designs and manufactures voltage reduction devices for guitar amplifiers. Sotos holds a Bachelor of Science with honors in industrial engineering with a focus in product design and service engineering and a minor in entrepreneurship and innovation from the Penn State Schreier Honors College. She has published research in the areas of product family design, customer experience, marketing segmentation and analytics, and quality function deployment. Please join me in welcoming Cassandra Sotos to the stage.
Thank you very much. Good morning, New Orleans. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Amanda. My name is Cassandra Sotos, and like she said, I'm visiting you from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a violinist, recording artist, real estate entrepreneur, business owner and CEO, and of course, an industrial engineer. I also serve as the co-chair for the Nashville chapter of a global nonprofit called Women in Music, another thing that I'm very passionate about. I'd first like to thank IISE for inviting me and say congratulations to everyone who's speaking this week. Not only that, I'd like to acknowledge that out of 3 keynote speakers, 2 of us are women, and what a joy it is to see more and more women representing the field of engineering and STEM in general. Thank you to all of the leadership at IISE for being forward-thinking and setting a great example for the future, and for bringing an incredible group of people together this week. It says a lot of the leadership of this organization that they chose to embrace me for what some may consider a non-traditional path and differences. I'd also like to make a special thank you to David Brand at IISE, who has been a champion of mine for a very long time and has always made me feel like my story is valid and important to tell. Thank you, David. There he is. There's something I promised myself that I would tell you during the first minute of my talk, and it's that this is my very first keynote address. So the way I see it, the next 45 minutes of our lives could go several ways, but no matter how it goes, we're in it together. So I truly appreciate getting to have such a great audience for my first time speaking like this. So thank you very much for coming today and for giving me the opportunity to share my story. That being said, I do have some personal requests for you. If I say something stupid or make a mistake, please laugh. I will only be embarrassed if you don't laugh. And if anybody has a beer bottle to throw at me, that'll be extra points for making me feel at home. I have been a musician for over 20 years now, so that's more par for the course than this usually. So if you feel like cheering at any time, please do it. Yell, clap, whatever you want to do. That's Clark. So what I'm talking about today, when IISE asked me to speak about myself, I was very honored, but also relieved, because I am the foremost expert on myself. So I've chosen to stick to that topic today pretty closely. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, how I ended up where I am today, the pivots that I've made throughout my career, and how industrial engineering has remained an important part of my journey. I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, and I grew up playing the violin. I saw someone playing the violin when I was 3 years old, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do. I started taking lessons when I was 4, and I was playing in bands out in real life by the time I was 13. The rest of that is maybe in another talk someday. And in between all of that, I developed an interest and strength in math, science, and business, and I ended up at Penn State. There's proof, there's the picture. I graduated in 2010 with a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering and a minor in engineering entrepreneurship. I've actually attended and presented at this very conference, both as a student and a professional. After college, I went directly to New York City to a job in consulting at Accenture for 3 years. And about 10 years ago, I left that job and moved to Nashville to pursue doing music full-time, which has been the majority of what I've done since. I am a professional musician, and I play acoustic violin, mandolin, and sing. And I also play an instrument called the Viper, which is a 7-string fretted flying V electric violin. I was fortunate enough to incorporate this instrument into my thesis work at Penn State, which I'll also tell you more about later. I've played thousands of gigs with artists all over the world throughout the years, but what I'm most well known for musically is being the violinist with international Bollywood pop star Arijit Singh. It's the biggest gig I could have that you have never heard of. Do I have any Desi friends in the audience today? Okay. Can you please cheer to let everyone know how big of a deal Arijit Singh actually is? You might not have heard of him, but Arijit Singh is the biggest star in Indian popular music history, and by statistics is one of the biggest stars in the world. He's also in his prime, so that makes being on his team extra exciting and interesting. I've been performing with Arijit for about 5 years now, and I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in India and perform all over the world, at least 10 countries across 4 continents, in front of audiences ranging from 25 to 40,000 people on average. Arijit can tour anywhere in the world that there's an Indian population. Most recently, I performed with him in the biggest stadium in the world, Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad, for the IPL opening ceremony. Yeah. The IPL is the Indian Premier League for cricket, which is, I think, the second biggest sport in the world. We had an in-person attendance of 100,000 people and a TV viewership of 140 million people. Needless to say, it was a huge moment in my life. Touring with Arijit completely changed my life and my perspective. I will never forget what it felt like flying across the world to play with him for the first time. No matter what I accomplish in my music career, I will always be an 8-year-old that really, really wants to play the violin. He is one of the most talented vocalists alive in the world today, and it has been an absolute honor in my career to have shared the stage with him. Jai Hind. During the pandemic, when the live music and touring world got turned upside down, I had the opportunity to flex my entrepreneurial and construction muscles a little more by investing in real estate with my partner, Clark. Clark's right there, hi Clark, as well as buying the company we now own together, AmpRx. Clark, who, if you're wondering, is my partner in both business and pleasure. We are romantically involved. And he is also a professional musician. We both really took advantage of the time away from the stage in 2020 to pivot and grow, both in real estate and manufacturing. I'm going to get into all of that later, but firstly, I want to tell you about my time at Penn State. When I arrived at Penn State, I joined the School of Engineering, and to be transparent, the reasons I joined engineering were that, sure, I was interested in science, technology, and design, but I also had a scholarship that I could only use at the engineering school. And I liked doing things that were hard and impressive. So engineering seemed well qualified for that. Yeah. I was torn about it at the time because I had a lot of interest in business and entrepreneurship, but I wasn't very interested or willing to go to the business school. And more than any of that, I really just wanted to be playing music with my band. So at this point, you might be wondering, why didn't I just major in music? The truth is, I didn't see it as a viable option for me. I didn't have any example from what my life in music school or beyond would be like. What I believed was that a college degree as a music student would get you a job as a music teacher or in a symphony, and I already knew that I didn't want to do that. That, by the way, is not true. You can end up doing a lot of different things with a music degree, and you learned an incredible amount of information. But that's what I thought. In my limited view, there was nothing between having a hobby and being Beyoncé, which is also not true. So I went to engineering school, and for the record, I'm very glad that I did. However, I was not initially an industrial engineering major. I had never heard of it, like a lot of students. I was introduced to industrial engineering. Hey, I've been saying IISE this entire week. That is hard. I was introduced to industrial engineering at the Women in Engineering orientation by my assigned mentor, Jen Buckles, who only by chance, was a senior in IE. It seemed like the perfect intersection of the business world and the mindset with the solid technical expertise that I was looking for, and still in the engineering school. And when I found out that more CEOs are IEs than any other engineering discipline, I was sold. I continued performing throughout college, but much less than any other time in my life. And I found out to be successful at school, I really needed to focus. I approached music projects with a quality versus quantity mindset, but I always knew that I wanted to go back to it. I started looking for other ways to combine my interests in education, and I ended up using my electric violin as a subject for my thesis work. As you might have noticed, my electric violin is oddly shaped, so I used the shape and specifications of it along with the user experience of other people who play it to design a product family of instrument stands. I was able to graduate with honors from Penn State because of it, and I also had the opportunity to present my research at this conference. After graduation, I wanted to become a musician, but I still didn't really know how. So I did what I figured would be the next best thing, and I got myself to New York City. That would at least allow me to be in a place where I'd be around people who I believe were performing at the next level. So to do that, I got a job with Accenture, where I worked for 3 years. But I was miserable. And I was miserable to be around, too. There is nothing wrong with Accenture as an organization, the people who work there, the work they do, or the consulting industry in general. In fact, I went into it because I thought it was very cool and interesting. And I still believe that. And I truly believe that they attract some of the best people, and they are great, and I'll still stand here and say that they're a great company to work for. And yet, I still knew something was wrong. I just felt like I didn't fit in, and I wasn't tapping into my full potential as a person. That is the kind of job that you have to be dedicated to as a career. It's not a job, it's a career. I also became very defensive about being a musician, and if you met me then, it wouldn't take one sentence for me to tell you that, "Hi, my name's Cassandra. I know you met me at work, but I'm actually a violinist." We wouldn't even be done shaking hands by that point, and I'd be throwing that information at you. It became abundantly clear that I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. But I kept doing it because when I started, I had this idea that I would get the big call. And then Beyoncé would personally ask me to quit my job and please be her full-time violinist, and then I would quit. Well, big surprise, big surprise. I never got that big call. It was 2.5 years into it when I realized that it wasn't going to happen that way. I was doing cool gigs with great people and being creative, but I was still waiting for an imaginary call or permission to really make a move and start doing what I wanted to do. In deciding to leave the company, I came to 2 very important conclusions that will always stay with me. First and foremost, I realized that I had to become the kind of person who would receive a big call like that. Strip away every other thing, every outside circumstance, and answer the question of, is who I am today and how I'm living my life indicative of the type of person who would ever even receive a call like that? And the answer was a resounding no. The being was missing for me. I was still waiting for something else, literally a call to start living and being here as myself. And until I started doing that, I knew that I would never receive the call. I also came to believe that everyone has multiple ways to contribute to the world, things they're good at, have skills in, or are talented at. But at any given time, there's usually one thing that stands out, that if they follow that path, they have the most chance to do something great. And by great, I mean positively and profoundly impactful to themselves and the people around them. I noticed that people really responded when I performed or worked on music. And on the other hand, I was doing a very so-so fine job at Accenture. Like, I was doing what I was told, but no waves were being made. And I don't think the difference is between the two careers. In fact, I know that. The difference was me. Being a musician is not inherently cooler than being a consultant. I know that for a fact because I've been both. But for me, it was the thing that I needed to do more than the other. Both of these ideas have been supported time and time again in my career and my personal life. And those two realizations set the tone for how I would make decisions for the rest of my life. When I quit, I remember calling my lead at Accenture, and of course, I was very nervous. It went nothing like what I expected. He was so genuinely proud of me. He didn't give me a hard time for even a second. He said, "Wow, that's absolutely amazing. I know you're gonna do great. I just know it. I'm so proud of you. That's something that I could never do." And of course I said, "Thank you." But I thought to myself, what on earth is he talking about? All I've done is quit. I just blew a high-paying, respectable, big girl job for what? I didn't see what I was doing there until much later. His support was a very uplifting moment for me, and I thought about it time and time again throughout the years, especially when I was struggling with my decisions. And from then on, I kept being told by people who I had immense respect for that they were proud of me. And looking back, it makes perfect sense because I was really becoming the person that I should become in that moment, and good people can see that. So eventually, I moved to Nashville. I had no job there. I had no gig there. I did not know anybody. I found an apartment that I knew a friend of a friend lived at, so it would probably be safe. And I drove down there with my cats, sight unseen, which sounds pretty crazy, but I'll tell you what. From that moment on, I was really being that person. And I worked extremely hard to pull it all together, and it worked out for me. Every step along the way proved my theories, and I started getting bigger and bigger calls. And years later, I got one of the biggest calls you can get for someone like me, and I've done things I never even imagined. I was successful because I was eager to learn and work hard, available, committed, and building real relationships that were truly genuine. I basically started my life over there, and I had no option but to become a real part of the fabric of the community. And more importantly, I chose to do that as the most authentic version of myself. These were the real keys to my success during that period in my life. I want to take a moment to tell you what this is not. This is not a follow your passion motivational poster. This is not a testimonial in support of the Great Resignation, which I think is utter bullshit, by the way. This is not a promise that you'll never work a day in your life. I am not happy all the time. I work very hard and make a lot of sacrifices, and so does my partner. This is only a plea for you to consider all the possibilities of your potential contributions to the world and how you approach that. There's a version of this story that tells you how I did all of this instead of engineering. And there's a version of the story that tells you how I'm glad I did it with engineering. If you asked me then, the story would be about how I'm brave enough to change career paths. And that story does still exist. But now, I can tell a deeper story of how the foundation of my education and experiences have done nothing but lift me higher and helped me grow throughout the years. My number one most asked question, without hesitation, is this: is that a fiddle or a violin? They don't ask me how old I am or where I'm from or what my name is. They want to know if that's a violin or a fiddle. Has anyone been wondering this over the last 3 days? I can't go anywhere without somebody asking me this question. Let's do an experiment. Okay, we're live. That's one. Two. Okay, is it a fiddle, is it a violin, or is it Bollywood? Only a few people in the audience know that, if it's Bollywood or not. What do you guys think? What are we doing here today? Which one is it?
Is there an option for all?
I told you to yell it out. I told you to yell when we started.
All three.
It's all three. Okay, we have smart people here. As you can imagine, I've had the opportunity to develop a lot of answers to that over the years. My personal favorite is, well, I don't know, depends who's writing the check. Here's the truth, as you all correctly answered. The violin and the fiddle, and Bollywood, are the exact same thing. The solitary difference is the way you play it. The same goes for engineering or any skill you have. The single most important thing you have is your way of thinking. The tools, the methods, the softwares, or the instrument, they might help train your mindset along the way, but they're dead without you and your way of thinking. So if you think about it that way, there's not really a traditional versus non-traditional application. Maybe there are paths which are unusual, more or less typical, and maybe you use the tools you have to a varying degree. But right next to your skill set, there's your mindset. People also ask me, are you a musician or are you an engineer? I am both. No one can ever take my education away from me. The same way that no one can ever take away the experience of touring with Arijit Singh away from me. Why deny myself either thing? Maybe in certain settings, I'm leading with one or the other, depending on the audience, as a way to relate or connect. But when I go to sleep at night and when I wake up in the morning, I am both. Nothing I've ever learned or studied or pursued has made me anything less of something else. People used to ask how I felt about throwing away my education. I don't throw any experiences away. I stand on top of them to lift myself up even higher. Thank you. I know you've all been sitting on a burning question this morning, and I'm sorry, but no, I don't still use Minitab. I told you guys they were going to laugh at that joke. What engineering skills have you used in your music career and beyond? Here are the things that I learned in engineering school that have shaped me today. I learned how to learn and study. In my experience, that is a skill all on its own that can become weak over time if it's not activated regularly and well. I learned how to research thoroughly, and I'd like to note, I don't know what's going on today, but Wikipedia was not a citable source when I was in college. It's still not? Okay, good. I learned how to solve problems by thinking critically. I don't know if you guys have been on the internet much recently, but people don't know how to think critically. And there's a distinct lack of problem solving in the world. I learned how to systematically identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and risks. I learned how to understand and design processes and systems. And these are all things that I've applied to everything ranging from my everyday life to my finances and my career. In an early IE class at Penn State, as a way to introduce processes, we were asked to write a flowchart for all of the steps required to ride an elevator. We all thought it was going to be simple, but not a single person in the class got every single step, and more than half missed half of the steps. My mind was blown by this, and it changed the way that I looked at things from there on out. To be able to look from the top down, starting with the whole system and its overarching goal, to every tiny step that goes into it, is extremely valuable, and it can unlock any obstacle. It's not something that most people can do. Because of all this, I'm able to critically identify the key things that I already have in my favor, as well as what I need to improve on and continue solving. I'm also able to systematically and methodically dismantle any obstacle I come across, whether it's personal, professional, or technical, whether it takes a day or a 5-year plan. You can take anything apart and put it back together, whether you can see it and touch it or not. In consulting, I gained skills that 100% set me up for success in the future. I learned how to act professionally in so many different settings, with many different types of people, all at different levels. I came out of that job feeling confident and competent enough to have a conversation with anyone in business, from an analyst to an executive. Consulting forces you to have a rock-solid foundation in adding serious value, communicating effectively, and understanding a client-service relationship. Having a strong understanding of these 3 things sets you apart like night and day, no matter where you go. All the things I've mentioned have allowed me to look at my life like a system of processes that contribute to one another instead of subtracting from one another. Running my life and myself like a business gave me more financial and time freedom to work on projects that I wanted to do and were of a higher quality. All things that would in turn get me further ahead professionally in the future. And again, it all comes back to mindset. The single most important thing you have is your way of thinking and your approach to life. Like any other human on the planet, I have felt hopeless and lost, not good enough, and even unlucky. And when those feelings hit me, they hit me really hard, and they feel very real. But as I've already described to you, I know that I have a great foundation, and I'm driven by another really important defining principle. I do not believe there is anything inherently about me that precludes me from any accomplishment, achievement, or joy in life. And when my mind says, you think you can do that? I say back, why not? In my deepest depths, I believe that the universe is conspiring on all of our behalf, even when it doesn't seem like it and when we can't see it. At the same time, I believe that we have to be active collaborators and partners and do everything we can to help ourselves. And one of the ways I do that is that I stopped saying, I could never do that. This is what has allowed me to take all of these seemingly crazy leaps over the years and has put me in a position where I'm willing to do a lot of things that other people are unwilling to do. I want to tell you about one of the very last times I said to myself, I could never do that. It was during my senior year at Penn State, and I was in the honors college, and I was supposed to have started my thesis, but I had not started my thesis. I barely even had a topic, and I did not have an advisor. I was totally unnerved by the idea that I had to do that research and write that paper. I honestly did not think that I could do it. I said to myself, I am just not smart enough. I am just not like those other kids in the honors college. I could never write a 40-page paper, 70-page paper. I could never write a literature review. My ideas for a topic are garbage, and I'm just too late. Everyone else has an advisor. They all started like 2 years ago because they're overachievers. I should just cut my losses. I've already asked a few professors to be my advisor, and they passed. So I figured it was time to let it go. I'll still graduate Penn State, but just not with honors. I had all but decided to scrap the idea of doing the thesis. And in comes Dr. David Claudio, who's right here today. I don't think Dr. Claudio knows that this was going to happen today. He didn't know that. I also didn't know that he was going to sit in the front row. Dr. Claudio remembers being introduced to me for the first time because I sent him an email asking if I could skip my very first class with him so I could teach at a violin camp. Luckily, I think my willingness to ask for that leniency got his attention in a good way. I will never forget it. I was walking up the stairs of the Leonard Building at Penn State, and he was walking down. And I just knew he was going to ask me something about my thesis. So I started picking up the pace, running up the stairs, like, please don't see me. But he caught me, and he said, I think he even turned around, like he really caught me. This almost didn't happen. But he said, hey, Cassandra, did you end up getting a thesis advisor? And I said, yeah, no, I didn't get one. I don't think I'm going to do it. I think I'm just going to not do it. I didn't get one. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And with genuine shock, he said, what? Why would you do that? You should do something with your violin. There's so many things you can do. And he continued, why not? Okay, listen, let me make you an appointment with Dr. Kramer. You're going to love her. Just promise to go to the meeting and take some ideas with your violin. If she doesn't like it, she'll give you some feedback, and we can try something else. But I think you can definitely do something with this. So at this point, I couldn't say no. He was going out of his way to make an appointment for me with a big professor and vouching for me. So obviously I was going to go. I just figured, fine, I'll go. But my idea is silly, and she's not going to like it. So when she officially rejects me, I can go back to my original plan of dropping out. So I went, and I pitched my ideas, and another wrench got thrown into the plan because she accepted my idea and agreed to work with me. And so you guys know what comes next, the literature review. That work turned out so well for me in ways that I never even thought possible. Because I did that project, I graduated with honors. I had the opportunity to present at this conference twice. We continued the research after the thesis. We also expanded it into a chapter for a textbook. And I was especially proud because I was the only author on that book that was an undergrad. I was also invited to perform and speak to the students at the Honors College multiple times. I don't think that would happen if I had dropped out. Had I not presented and gotten involved the way I did back then, I wouldn't have the connection to IISE that I have today, and I truly don't think I'd be speaking here. All out of a moment that I originally told myself that I wasn't even capable of. When Dr. Claudio stopped me that day, what he really said was, I see you, and I see you not giving yourself a chance, and I'm going to step in on your behalf and say, in this moment, when you say you can't, I'll say, of course you can. Why not? He stepped in for me when I wasn't able to do it for myself. I learned in that moment that no matter the magnitude of what you're looking at, when you think you're not smart enough or that you could never do something, you might be about to do your best work, better than you ever imagined. Think about what you would do if you never said, I could never do that again. Because all you're doing is shutting down the conversation about how whatever it is can happen, which can usually be logically sorted out. This mindset, combined with the mindset that I can systematically dismantle any obstacle in my path, has helped me to become very empowered to advocate for myself and achieve bigger and bigger goals. I'm also telling you that story because I'm fully aware that a lot of you are in a place in your life and career where you really don't need me to give you a big old, you can do it, because you already have and you know you can. But I know that you might find yourself in a position to tell somebody else that they can do it, a student, or someone you manage, or a friend. Dr. Claudio might not remember that moment on the stairs in Leonard, but that was a defining moment in my life that I've referred to time and time again when I make decisions about my path and my future. We need to collectively make sure that everyone has good people speaking into their lives. We are nowhere without that. I also stand here fully aware that I am a white woman in the year 2023 in the United States of America, and that a lot of good options have been presented to me over the course of my life. I have nice parents, I grew up in a nice place, I went to a great school, and I've met more people that want to help me than hurt me. I know that not everyone is in the same boat as me when it comes to those things, and that, for example, 50 years ago, it would have been much less likely that a single young woman would drop everything and go perform overseas alone and tour the world. It only makes me more grateful and makes me take every opportunity that I get much more seriously. I know I've been dealt a good hand, and that's one of the reasons that I think it's important for all of us to remember to uplift each other within this community and beyond. It's imperative that we keep encouraging other people to take chances, and when we're able to help, we take every chance to do it. While I maintain that I'm glad that I have my engineering background throughout my music career, I can admit that the way that I've incorporated engineering into my life has become more direct as I started working on other projects. When the pandemic hit, I was doing music 100% full-time, except for an Airbnb suite at my house and some rooms that I rented out to roommates. So if you recall, neither of those were particularly great businesses to be in as of March 2020. After an initial 2 weeks of panic and sorrow and wondering if I'd ever get to tour and play music again, Clark and I both said, enough of this. What's gonna be the big win now? I'm truly lucky to have a partner that's just about as crazy as I am, and we set out on a path to figure it out together. So we bought probably the worst house in the worst shape without being condemned that we could find. And instead of saying I could never do that, I said, pass me the hammer. What I have right now is time, a vision, and YouTube. And there I was, learning how to do something completely new again, managing a project and a timeline, managing a budget and scope, making design and financial decisions. And it turns out I have another special talent for demolition. In 90 days' time, we figured out what we needed to do, how to do it, got the tools for it, and then did the work. We did 99% of the work, just the two of us. We turned that place completely around into a beautiful property and had it fully rented out. It was actually a really unbelievable time frame to do that all in. And please trust me, it was not a paint and sweep the floor situation. We replaced everything from the electrical to the plumbing and even added a second bathroom. That's me getting dirty. In the beginning, it was very daunting, and I was extremely stressed about whether we could do it or not. But again, it turned out to be one of our greatest projects so far, and has created a lot of positive impact in our lives and others. It went so well that we decided to do it 2 more times with 2 other properties, armed with the knowledge and tools that we gained on the first project. Now, we have 5 properties in Nashville that are rentals. It can be difficult for musicians and freelancers to get approved for apartments, so we always try to rent to that community first. And between the 2 of us, we can fix pretty much anything in your house. Most of all, we had a lot of fun doing it. In 2021, Clark and I bought a company called AmpRx that manufactures a product called the BrownBox, which is a voltage attenuator for guitar amplifiers. Our products are sold worldwide and used by artists like Joe Walsh, Peter Frampton, Buddy Guy, Carlos Santana, and lots of others. We have a production and warehouse facility in Nashville, and while we do source components internationally, all of our products are assembled and hand-wired right there on site. Acquiring BrownBox was a really natural step for us because it's in the music products industry. Our clientele are musicians, and I was already familiar with the product because I used to use it with my electric violin. And at one point, we were like, isn't somebody in here an engineer or something? And I was like, oh yeah, that's me, LOL. I used to tell people that I have an engineering degree as a party trick. That's true, which did go over very well. But then I found myself buying a company, and it was no longer a party trick. There were many reasons that we were able to win the bid for that company. But one of them was most definitely that I could walk into that meeting and say, you know me as a musician and a user of your product, but what you didn't know is that I'm also an industrial manufacturing engineer. And in my experience, that gets people listening. It seemed like all the worlds were colliding at just at the right time. And between the 2 of us, we had the right network and experiences for it, both internally on the business side and externally for the customer base. And as we explored it more and more, it seemed like the perfect fit for the foundation that I had in IE. So we won the bid, took over the business, moved everything to Nashville. I never forgot that little stat that CEOs are mostly IEs. It was one of my favorite IE factoids. So naturally, my first move was to hire myself as the CEO. It's not a strange occurrence to have women in leadership anymore, of course, but the percentages are still way less than men. And in the music products industry, the numbers are even slimmer, very slim. So this was a statistic that Clark and I were both happy to contribute to. Clark took the title of president, and by the way, he did the facility layout for BrownBox. I did not. And he did a damn good job at it. He's also fully in charge of production, and if I could give him an honorary IE degree, I totally would. He has a degree in music, by the way. So like I've been saying this whole time, it's all mindset, and you never really know what you're gonna get into and how your experiences are gonna help you. Turns out he's fantastic at managing people because he's been leading bands for all these years. So I found myself suddenly at the beginning of last year surrounded by all these things that I learned about in school and at work, and I've been able to have intelligent conversations about them. It was a deep end that I definitely wouldn't have been able to swim in so quickly had it not been for my education and work experience, hands down. Here's some of our team working at the company, at AmpRx, at our shop. I also feel incredibly supported by my network and know that because of my background and involvement in organizations like Penn State and IISE, that I can always reach out to someone around the world to help with almost anything. That is priceless. The fact of the matter is that if you had not a single one of the skills that you learned as an IE, you could still make the world around you a better place through your drive and intentions. Now let's include the factors that are your skills, education, and disposition. This combination makes every single one of you absolutely unstoppable, and I hope you feel empowered by that. I'm totally aware that I'm in a room full of people with patents and publications and unending degrees and qualifications and accomplishments. But I also know that a lot of you might take for granted the immense amount of skills and expertise that you collectively possess because you might spend a lot of time with people working who are also at the same level as you. So please listen to me when I tell you that what you have is special. I've done a lot of things that you would consider different from what goes on in this room, and I can promise that what you have here is special. Somebody please stand up and tell me how the better, faster, stronger people aren't uniquely positioned to make the world a better place. You can't. You can improve anything in your life with the right intention. You can improve your personal relationships, your finances, your household, your community, the world. This is all the same thing. It's not what you're doing, it's how you do it. I do not care if you are a street sweeper, or if you sell newspapers on the corner, or if you're the CEO of an international mega corporation. Your intention and focus and purpose when it comes to your work and how you interact with the people in your path is 100% how you make the world a better place. Please shed the idea that you have to have a certain type of job to like it. Office Space is literally one of my favorite movies. I think it's hilarious. But the whole clock in, hate your job, clock out bit is completely overdone. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's still a great movie. It's not where you are, it's who you're with. Who do you spend most of your time with? Do you have a network of people that you can trust that want you to succeed? I've been trying to figure out how to say this politely for a couple of weeks, but if you're hanging out with a bunch of bozos, stop. If you find that you aren't inspired and challenged by the people you spend your time with, or that you can't share good and bad news with them, I'd suggest that you start looking for other people to spend your time with. And my first suggestion of where to look would be in this very room. Not only that, are you a person who makes yourself accessible to other people who are looking for encouragement or advice for growth? Be like Dr. Claudio. Push people to do more. Every step of the way, I'm able to achieve and conquer more complex projects and obstacles because I have an incredible network of friends and experts who want to help each other, and that's fact. It's not when you do it, it's why you do it. Intentions are ageless, and so is the being that I spoke about earlier. Just because you specialize in one thing doesn't mean that you can't learn something else or apply it differently in the future. I actually feel funny giving this speech and even referencing my success because I always feel like I'm at the beginning of the story. I always have something to look forward to and learn, and I'm always doing something that I don't actually know how to do yet. And that's fine, because even when it's extremely stressful and sometimes frightening, deep down, I know I have the resources to figure it out. That, by the way, includes this very first 45 minutes of public speaking without an instrument in my hand. As long as you keep looking and moving forward, that will never stop. I want to challenge you to accept pivotal moments in your own life and say yes to yourself. I've had the best experiences of my life when I was willing to make the biggest pivots. Moving to Nashville, going to India, flipping the first house, buying the company. These things do not have to be a loss of the previous chapter of your life. If you're already doing all of that, find a way to mentor other people, encourage them to say yes to themselves, and be willing to play an active role in the pivotal moments of their lives. Please don't take for granted your influence on the people around you. And know that your mindset and your skill set combined can take you literally anywhere and that you can do anything with them. This room holds an incredibly impactful group of people. I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. This is only a plea for you to consider all the possibilities of your potential contributions to the world and how you approach that. They are truly limitless. And stop saying, I could never do that. Thank you.